Executive Director for Community Research Opportunities for Women Now, CROWN, and I'm your moderator at this inaugural assembly. I am honored, humbled to host us today. To kickstart this One in a Million event, I would like to invite a royalty, a global envoy, Prince Dr. Osita Aniemeka, President of Sub-Saharan Open University and the Curator General for Mothers Against Hunger in Africa, MAHA, to welcome us, Your Excellency, sir, Dr. Osita.
Thank you. This is Your Highnesses, distinguished guests, honored partners, and above all, MAHA mothers. Welcome. Welcome to our moment. There is an Igbo word. It says, Nkabuzani, and it means this is our path. And today, in the closing moments of this year's International Women's Day celebrations, on the birth of the new dawn on the second continent of Africa, our cradle of mankind, I stand before the most powerful force Africa has ever quietly assembled. Mothers who have decided that enough is enough. We did not get here today by accident. We were chosen by something older than politics, older than policy, older than every institution that has promised much and delivered little. We were chosen by love, the fierce, unyielding, bone-deep love of a woman who has watched a child go to sleep hungry and decided in the silence of that terrible night that she will rise. That's why we're here. Let me speak plainly about the world into which MAHA is born. Africa is a continent of staggering abundance. Her soils are among the most fertile on this earth. Her rivers run wide and generous. Her sun pours down upon fields that could feed not just our own children, but the children of the world. And yet, hundreds of billions of our people wake up each morning uncertain whether they will eat. That is not the failure of the land. It's not the failure of nature. It is the failure of will, a failure of vision, a failure of the structures that were built not to feed the people, but to profit from their hunger. And so, into that failure, we have walked in. MAHA mothers, I need us to understand something about ourselves that we only see from where we stand. History does not remember committees. History does not remember memoranda. History does not remember the long corridors of power where men in suits negotiated the terms of other people's suffering. But history remembers mothers. History remembers the women of Aba who in 1929 rose against an empire without weapons, without armies, armed only with the fury of women who said, "You will not touch what we love." History remembers the women of Liberian peace movement who sang and prayed and held the line and ended the civil war that generals could not stop. History remembers Wangari Maathai, who planted trees in the deforested Kenya and taught the continent that healing the earth was an act of political defiance. These were not extraordinary women dropped from the heavens.
Sorry, today instead of yesterday.
These were women exactly like us, who simply refused to look away. And today, in this virtual room, at this platform, in this moment that we will one day tell our grandchildren about, who have also refused to look away. MAHA is not an organization, it's a reckoning. Now, the mantle we receive today is not a light one. I will not stand before us to offer flattery when what we need is fire. The African food crisis is not a headline, it is hemorrhage. It is children whose minds were stunted before they were ever given the chance to dream. It is women who spend their brilliance on survival when they were born to build. It is farmers, most of them women, who feed the continent but cannot feed themselves. And the forces arrayed against change are not indifferent. They are invested in the broken supply chain, invested in dependency, invested in the idea that Africa is a problem to be managed rather than a power to be reckoned with. But hear me, every empire has a Waterloo, and Africa's food crisis will meet its match in the organized, determined, spiritually grounded resolve of her mothers. This is not poetry. It is prophecy. So, what does MAHA ask of us today? It asks us to show up, not just in meetings, but in our commitments, in our markets, in our farms, in our kitchens, in our churches, in our mosques, in our village squares. It asks us to speak, not with the timid voice of those who wait for permission, but with clarion voice of women who know that the mandate that they carry comes from a higher authority than any government. It asks us to build networks, coalitions, knowledge systems, supply chains, seed banks, storage facilities, school feeding programs, all the patient, practical architecture of a food-secure future. It asks us to dream dangerously, to imagine an Africa where no child cries for hunger, and then to walk every single day as though that Africa is not a dream, but a destination already decided. And it asks us to hold each other, because this is work, and we work hard. There will be days where the scale of the problems will be crushing. There will be days when systems push back and the funding falls through and the meetings go nowhere and the ground feels like it's giving away beneath our feet. On those days, we turn to the woman beside us. She's our strength, she's our witness, she's our reminder that we did not come this far alone. We will not falter alone either. MAHA mothers, I look at us today and I see something that this world is not yet ready for. I see women who have already survived the unsurvivable, women who have buried and grieved and rebuilt, women who have carried households on their backs and nations in their hearts, women who know in the most intimate and romantic way what it costs when a child is not fed. That knowledge is not a wound. That knowledge is a weapon, and we'll use it. Let's use it in every boardroom and budget meeting. Let's use it in every conversation with a local government official who has forgotten what it feels to be hungry. Let's use it to cut through the noise and nonsense that get to the simple, unsellable truth at the center of everything. MAHA stands for a fed child is a future, and Africa's future will not be negotiated away. Today, in this International Women's Day side event, we are proud to show up. Today, in a season of the day set aside to honor the women who have changed the world, we are not celebrating history, we are making history. Yes, a young girl somewhere in the great continent sits at a table full of food, surrounded by a family that knows abundance rather than scarcity. She will not know our names, but she will be living the answer to the question that said yes today. And that is more than enough. MAHA mothers, welcome to our moment. Welcome to our mandate. Welcome to the work that the world has been waiting for. Now, let us begin. Dal, Oshe, Nabode, Amandla, Asante, God bless us all. My name is Osita Aniemeka, and I am the Curator General for Mothers Against Hunger in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aniemeka, for that wonderful welcome address. We'll be calling on Dr. Chinelo Aniamalo for her talk on examining the critical link between women's nutrition, maternal and child health. Dr. Chinelo is Associate Professor, College of Medicine, University of Tennessee Health Science Center. Dr. Chinelo, please. Dr. Chinelo.
I am still looking for her. I thought I saw her here earlier.
Okay, while we await Dr. Chinelo's arrival, please, is Lady Cecilia here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Lady Cecilia, please. Lady Cecilia will be, good afternoon, I hope. Lady Cecilia will be speaking to us on Africans' broader food security outcomes with particular attention to the first 1,000 days of life. Lady Cecilia Biel is founder CB's Green Initiative for Community Development, Sierra Leone. Lady Cecilia.
Thank you, distinguished guests, esteemed leaders, and fellow advocates. As we speak about African brothers' food security outcomes, we must center our attention on one of the most critical windows of human development, the first 1,000 days of life, from conception to a child's second birthday. This period is just a phase. It is the foundation of nature's future. Why the first 1,000 days matter? During this first 1,000 days, a child's brain develops at an extraordinary pace. Nutritional deficiencies can cause irreversible damage. The foundation for health, learning, ability, and productivity is established. When nutrition is adequate during this window, the consequences are long-term. One, stunting, weakened immunity, poor cognitive development, reduce economic potential in childhood. In essence, food insecurity in early life becomes national insecurity in the future. African food security challenge. Across Africa, we face a paradox. We are rich in natural, in African food challenge across Africa, we face a paradox. We are rich in natural resources, yet millions of children remain undernourished. The key challenges include limited access to nutritious food, not just food quantity, but quality. Poverty and inequality. Climate change is affecting agricultural productivity. Weak maternal nutrition systems. Limited education on infant and young child feeding practices. As a global ambassador for gender priority strategy, GEPS, I emphasize this truth. You cannot solve food security without empowering women. Women are primary caregivers and food providers. Maternal nutrition directly impacts child survival and development. Educate and empowered women make better nutritional decisions. Investing in women is investing in healthier children, stronger families, resilient communities, strategic solution for a new Africa. To improve food security outcomes in the first 1,000 days, we must strengthen maternal nutrition, ensure access to prenatal and postnatal care, promote proper nutrition for adolescent girls and mothers, to promote exclusive breastfeeding. First 6 months, no substitute equals breast milk. Continue with complementary feeding afterwards. To improve food systems, support local agriculture and nutrient-rich foods, make healthy food accessible and affordable. Education and awareness. Support education and awareness, community-based education for mothers and families, cultural relevance in nutrition programs, and also a policy and partnerships. Government commitment to nutrition-focused policies, collaboration with organizations like MAHA and HEPS. A call to concern or a call to action. If we are truly committed to creating a new Africa, then we must act with urgency and intention. Let us prioritize the first 1,000 days in national policies. 2, invest in women as agents of change. 3, build food systems that nourish, not just fill. 4, because when we nourish a child, we are not just feeding a life, we are shaping a future. Closing. The Africa we dream of begins not in boardrooms, but in the womb, not in policies alone, but in daily nutrition and nourishment of our children. Let us rise to this responsibility together. Thank you. Global Ambassador Cecilia Bill from Sierra Leone.
Thank you very much, Lady Cecilia, for that wonderful address. Now we call
You know, so bad. I think the Jenny, I hope see you video. You know video. Hey, they make so now. Give me by my seat. What you don't do.
Ambassador,
I call on Dr. Chinelo Aniemeka for her topic, says maternal and child health. Dr. Chinelo Aniemeka, please.
To make polluting expensive. So they're going to be priced in.
You're on mute, Dr. Aniemeka. You are on mute, please. Please unmute your microphone so that we can hear you. Okay, good.
Are other people having issues with their audios?
We can hear you now. Professor Aniemeka, please go ahead.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I've been having issues with audio. I'm not sure if it's from my end.
Go ahead, we can hear you now.
Okay, all right. Let me see if I could share a slide here. Okay. Are you guys able to see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Aniemeka. So I'm so honored to join this course as we talk about MAHA. So I'm going to speak briefly on the critical link between women's nutrition and the maternal and child health. And I do not have any financial disclosures. The objectives would be to understand the role of women's nutrition across the life course and review how nutrition affects women before, during, and after pregnancy, and to examine the key deficiencies and the consequences, and as well as discuss some practical interventions that can improve outcomes at both clinical and population level. Hold on, I don't know why. Okay, so why does this topic matter? We all know about nutrition, malnutrition. I'm from Nigeria and I'm a mother too. And so we know what it's like growing up, seeing, women who, sorry, I'm having audio issues. Is it just me?
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right, so malnutrition, as we know, contributes to nearly half of all the child deaths that we have globally, and is worse in the developing and countries, especially Africa and some parts of Asia. So poor maternal nutrition would directly impact pregnancy outcomes in several ways, and it's going to perpetuate a cycle of poor health that can span through generations. So even in high income settings, sometimes they're going to have disparities that hopefully I'll be able to talk about in a second. So let's talk about the intergenerational cycle. When you talk about that cycle, what does that mean? So basically, you're looking at what happens from the time of conception all the way to, when a woman carries, pregnancy and, gives birth and all that. And so what happens when you have a malnourished mother, right? How does that affect the baby? It comes up in so many ways. One would be the low birth weight of the baby, which of course, talk about childhood stunting that was just mentioned a few minutes ago, and then adult chronic diseases and wasting. So it kind of becomes more like a cycle from, a mother who is malnourished kind of transferred over to the child also. So it becomes more like a self-perpetuating cycle. And so let's look at the life course approach. So you're talking about nutrition before conception, nutrition during pregnancy, nutrition during the lactation phase, as well as the long-term effects on the offsprings of women. And so that brings us to what I would consider the key nutritional requirements in women. And when I'm talking about this, basically, I'm more focused on women in developing countries, in Africa, in Nigeria. I'm going to speak about Nigeria because that's where I'm from and all that. So there are key requirements that everybody needs, but especially women in the childbearing age. So one would be, when we talk about micronutrients, we're talking about the carbs, necessary carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and then we're also speaking about the micronutrients, things like the folate, calcium, iron, vitamin D, iodine, and other things. Why is this important? Like when a woman is now pregnant, of course we do require all this, but what happens when she becomes pregnant? The requirement kind of doubles because now she has to provide not just for herself, but as well as her unborn baby. So I just have, 10 minutes or so to speak about this. I'm going to kind of rush through these slides, but I wanted to emphasize a few things that I thought would, are important. So when we talk about the micronutrient deficiencies, the commonest will be, iron deficiency anemia that does affect millions and millions of people globally. And this is not just, in the low income or middle income countries, but as well as even, high income places. So it's a very common thing. So you can imagine, in the setting of a pregnant woman. So what happens, it does increase the maternal mortality risk. Mortality risk basically means the death rate, complications that are going to come out of, perhaps a medical condition, pregnancy associated issues that will finally, result in death of that mother. And how does this affect the child also? You're worried about the preterm birth, low birth weight, as well as cognitive delays in infants. And that would bring me to folate deficiency also. Folate is so important. We know that, for instance, women who are actually planning to become pregnant, that's one of the things that we say, hey, make sure you're taking your folate daily. And this is actually prior to you getting pregnant. How much more when the woman is pregnant? Why is this very, very important? Because folate is involved in DNA synthesis, that when there's any breach in that, will lead to major deficiencies or defects in that child, especially the neural tube defect. And then, you're going to see children that are born with several anomalies. The commonest one would be like the spinal bifida and, small brain, we call it anencephaly. So it's a very important preconception supplementation. If you're going to see your doctor prior to getting pregnant, folate deficiency is something that you're going to talk about, and most women will end up, being put on folate supplements. What about vitamin D and the pregnancy outcomes? Even for adults, as we get to our 40s, as we get to our 50s, we're back to, taking vitamin Ds for osteoporosis and all that. So it's also very important for the pregnant woman. What does the vitamin D do? It supports immune and skeletal health, bone health, right? Like I talked about, even this is something that would, progress from the pre-pregnant stage throughout the pregnancy, as well as the post-pregnancy stage, and will affect every single one of us, male, females. Okay, so vitamin D. So the deficiency of this, what gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, low birth weight. Why is this so worrisome? If we're talking about these complications of these issues that we will see in low income or middle income countries, we can afford our women to have to go through these, medical issues that is very intense and, cost, intensive and all that. So these are things I just kind of wanted to, bring up to, and then you talk about the complications in the baby, right? Or in the fetus, intrauterine growth restrictions, spontaneous abortions, increase in the metabolic disorders that will kind of follow these children up until adulthood. Let's talk about iodine, and brain development. This is something that is very, very critical for thyroid hormone development. In Nigeria, growing up, I used to see a lot of women, with that, we call it goiter, right? And back home. So, when you have inadequate iodine intake. So this is very critical, not just for the pregnant woman, but for the woman as a woman in general. Due to the issues that you have, medical issues that's going to bring up, and then also for the woman who is pregnant, and for that unborn baby, and even for the child. So deficiency of iodine, you're worried about impaired neurodevelopment. So this child, if a child is born under a woman who has some issues with iodine levels, then you would expect that there would be some, Nigeria will say, mental development, but not necessarily mental, but neurodevelopmental issues, and then also low IQ in children. So this is something that is global. Here in the States, when you go to buy salt, most of the salt you're going to see are iodized salt. So they have iodine already added to that. So the British Dietary Association also suggests that women of childbearing age or those who are planning for pregnancy should aim to make sure that they meet the iodine requirements several months ahead of time. But, when we talk about this, is something you can do, maybe in the States, in Britain, and all those kind of places. But kind of when you think about the woman in the village, right, who is trying to feed, like trying to eat, I can assure you that iodine will be the last thing on her mind. But this is something that that I thought that we should bring up because it's something that we can easily step in and do something about. There's going to be increase in iodine requirement during pregnancy and breastfeeding, and therefore you need to create enough supply, not just for the woman, but also for the child. Then let's look at undernutrition in pregnancy. So you can talk about malnutrition and undernutrition. Basically, we're talking about when you have inadequate caloric intake and, in a woman who is pregnant or who is planning to be pregnant. The consequences obviously has a direct correlation, with the unborn child and with the baby. Intrauterine growth restriction is something you're going to worry about, preterm delivery, as well as increase in neonatal mortality. On the other hand, let's talk about overnutrition and obesity. This is something that you would see. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you guys still hear me? Oops.
We can hear you, Professor.
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Oh, okay, my bad. All right. So overnutrition and obesity. So you know how you worry about undernutrition and malnutrition in low income and middle income countries. Then you come over to some areas and what you worry about will be overnutrition and obesity. And so we know that currently about 2 billion people worldwide are considered obese. And when you talk about obesity, you're talking about increased BMI of more than 30, or overweight when is the BMI of more than 25. And so just like malnutrition or undernutrition, it also comes with its own issues, right? Gestational diabetes, which is diabetes that comes on when a woman is pregnant or the pre or the peri-pregnant era. Then hypertensive disorders. You're going to see a lot of women here who are overweight or obese. Then you have to worry about hypertension, you have to worry about your sugar, you have to worry about your cholesterol and all those things. And they have direct effects on the child. Most times they end up with a C-section or, normal delivery birth. So long-term child risk, right? Okay, what happens for, this child that is born to a woman who is obese? Also, it places this child at very high risk for, also subsequently becoming obese themselves and overweight, as well as things like metabolic syndrome. That is something that would risk that this child or, will have to deal with for the rest of their lives. Let's talk about maternal diet effects. Breast milk, for most people, there's nothing to me that is better than a mother's breast milk, right? And so diet would also affect the quality of the breast milk as well as the quantity. A woman who is malnourished is very unlikely to have enough supply of breast milk for their child. And so we can never speak enough about the exclusive benefits that you would get from breastfeeding. This is something that I do advocate here. When I had my kids, I was doing exclusive breastfeeding till my milk dried up and I had no choice but to stop. But for those people that can do that, this is something we want to encourage our mothers, regardless of geographic location, whether you're in Africa, you're in Asia, you're Europe or Americas or wherever you are, to reduce infections. Breast milk confers immunity to so many types of infection. And so you see that children who were breastfed, typically for the first year or two of their lives, will have less infections compared to those who did not have that. So quickly, let's look at the social determinants of nutrition. These are things that is worldwide. Again, poverty, food insecurity. This is something else has been mentioned here. The educational level, illiteracy is also a problem because a lot of times people don't know, women don't know. And then having proper antenatal care integrated into the system, the women who are pregnant are able to get good antenatal care, as well as community-based programs to spread more like education. Then evidence-based interventions, providing supplementations with iron, folic acid, calcium, vitamin D, those micronutrients that would affect a child negatively if they are deficient. And then food fortification programs, how can we make, is there something that you have for pregnant women, food, to provide food for them and their children. In the States here, they have a program where women and children actually have a particular, regardless whether how do you put it, your immigration status, your color, your age, it doesn't matter as long as you're pregnant, and they make sure that you have enough food for yourself and your children. And then nutrition education. We have some foods back home that it doesn't have to be, processed food. Like, the funny thing is that what we consider, the best food here, organic food, is actually what we have back home. It could be cassava, right? Prepared properly. It could be, several kinds of beans. In Igbo, there's something that's called akidi, a type of beans. These are very nutritious things that we can actually teach these women. And then, of course, the antenatal care. So let's look at the takeaway points. Women's nutrition is central to maternal and child health. The effects would affect generations from a child over to when they become an adult and they have their own children. Both undernutrition and overnutrition is an issue. So our goal would be to kind of stay in between both of that. And then early and sustained interventions are very critical. And then addressing the inequalities is also very essential. So thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Dr. Chinelo. Thank you. That was very, very educating. Please, let's welcome our keynote speaker, Her Excellency, Ambassador Professor Ada JUNI Menakaya. She'll be talking on prioritizing gender strategies for hunger solutions in Africa. Your Excellency, Ma.
Wow. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Oh my God. I have to start with sincere apology. I've been on Zoom since 5 a.m. New York time, and it's an international program speaking from Sierra Leone, and I have to cut off in order for me to speak and come and join here. So I apologize for not being here at the beginning, and I want to believe my apology is accepted. Thank you, Ambassador Princess Laila. How are you doing? Thank you for moderating this process. And also thank you to Ambassador Dr. Osita Aniemeka for putting all the efforts to ensure that this program of Mothers Against Hunger in Africa comes to light. We've been talking about this since about a year and a half now. Yes. So, and finally, it has come to place. So I appreciate you, and I thank God for all the speakers. In fact, as I was coming in, the speaker from Sierra Leone was rounding off, and I said, "Look at that." And I'm just from a program in Sierra Leone. So thank you everyone. Yes, my assignment at the beginning of this program is to give a keynote presentation on prioritizing gender strategies for hunger solutions in Africa. Interestingly, this month is International Women's Month, even though gender is all inclusive. But you know, when we talk about gender, the whole world, especially African mentality, takes it to be women. Gender is all inclusive, not just women. So how do we now prioritize strategies for hunger solutions in Africa? As a young girl, I was brought up by my grandmother in the village, and I witnessed her family priorities. You know, if she comes back from market or from the farmland in the evening, and there is, of course, we are waiting for her to come back to cook food, and then she will just go to the back of her house, back of her kitchen, plug one or two things. By the time you could say Jack Robinson food is ready, and then we eat food and go to bed. So, but these days, it's either you go to market or you don't go to market. And this is why it is a challenge is because you must have money to go to market to buy foodstuff. I remember when I came to United States, with $20, you can cook food for 1 week. These days, $200, you'll be looking for what did you buy? So it's now a challenge for us to go back to our grandmother's method. But the challenge is we now live on high buildings, you know, story buildings upstairs, and then no place, no more backyard to play. But there is still strategy, like what we did when the global ambassadors of gender priority strategy, when we flagged the issue about hunger solutions. Our Excellency talked about using the paint bucket, using cement bags to establish what our grandmothers established. You know, plant your pepper, plant your vegetables, because we don't really need meat or something when it's not affordable. But we need more vegetable, we need more vitamins, you know, that just as the last speaker had just mentioned. And all these vitamins that are processed into bottles and liquids, all rooted from our vegetables and fruits, you know, from our organic ground. So we talk about having what we call the farm products from your house to be available at any time. So by that initiative, my grandmother was known as a grandmother against hunger in the home. So these days, we are talking about hunger solution. In a time where money is hard to buy, money is hard to come. Most of the time, you don't even have savings. And if we don't do that, how do we now provide food for the family? So why gender must be at the center of hunger solutions? Hunger in Africa is not gender neutral. It is gender shaped, gender experienced, and must be gender solved. It's not gender neutral, it must be gender shaped, gender experienced, and gender solved. Women produce up to 70% of Africa's food, yet own less than 15% of the land. Women are the first to eat, last in many households. They are the last to eat because they want to make sure that everybody in the home has gotten food. Of course, when you talk about women, you also talk about the girls. Girls are the first to drop out of school when there is problem in the house. There is no food in the house and there is farmland somewhere. Of course, the boys will go to house if the boys are in school, or maybe they are somewhere learning trade. But the girls will be asked to drop out of the school in order to help with the food scarce in the family. So mothers are the first responders in every hunger crisis, rationing meals, rationing food, and protecting children. Mothers are first responders. So to ignore gender is to ignore the very architect of hunger in Africa. But to prioritize gender is to unlock the most powerful, scalable, and sustainable hunger solution available to the continent. The African mother, the untapped engine of food security. MAHA recognizes the African mother as the cultivator, the caregiver, the nutritionist, the economics of the household, the manager of the home, the stabilizer of communities, the moral compass of the nation. That is what MAHA is talking about today. So when mothers thrive, families rise. And when mothers lead, communities transform. When mothers are empowered, hunger retreats. So this is why MAHA was born, to place mothers at the center of Africa's hunger solutions. But what is the urgency now? A continent at a crossroad. Africa holds 60% of world's uncultivated arable land, yet remains the continent most affected by hunger. We cannot build a new Africa with old strategies. We need to advance. We need to talk about the millennium strategies. We need to talk about sustainabilities. We need to re-echo what the United Nations is talking about as Sustainable Development Goal 1, end hunger, and eradicate poverty, and then Goal 2, end hunger. We need to lean on all this to see how best we can solve the issue of hunger in Africa. We cannot end hunger with gender-blind policies. That is one of the bondage we are. We have blind policies. When I mean by blind policy, we mean those policies that are just there on black and white without being implemented. These are gender-blind policies. Oh, there is food. Especially we in Africa, we like data. Nigeria is 300 million, but 299 million have food every day, 3 times a day. How justifiable is that? So we live on blind policies that are not implementable, they are not achievable. We cannot achieve SDGs without women-centered, mother-led interventions. Whether we like it or not, we still have that mandate, assignment, and responsibility as women, as problem solvers. If you doubt it, take your mind back to the time of COVID. Only 17 countries headed by women had no record of death on COVID. Only 17 countries headed by women. All the countries headed by women, there was not even one report on women, on a child or adult that died out of COVID, which means they managed the situation effectively, most successfully. So we are still this problem-led intervention, interveners. We are still the solvers, the solution people. Take it back to the scriptures. We're still the solution people. So right now we need to give women the authority, the power to live up to our expectations. That is what we are talking about. So the 2026 must be the year Africa chooses gender-responsive transformation over incremental change. And I thank God that MAHA is coming at this time. And then we'll look at to achieve that, we'll look at the strategies that can help the priorities that we are trying to look at in order to ensure that MAHA carries its assignment accordingly with respect to solving the hunger of solutions. So one of the strategies is the gender-responsive agricultural policies. That's one of the that policies will reflect the realities of women farmers, access to land, credit, technology, and climate-smart tools. It's not just providing solutions. We need to make this available. We need to also look at women-led food systems innovation, support mothers as agri-entrepreneurs, processors, distributors, and value chain leaders. We need to support. We need to go back to what our grandmothers were doing. We need to know that food is very, very important. Let us lean less on issue of pasteurized food, shawarma, all those mass and all those things. We need to lean less on that. Here in America is pizza, is French fries, all those are not they are very unhealthy food, and it's not good for children. Let us go back to the drawing board. We also look at nutrition and early childhood development. Nutrition. You see, these days, I'm sure that the last speaker before me talked about the nutritional values of vitamins and all the rest of it. These days, we don't think about this in terms of children. You know, we just buy clothes, send them to school, thank God for private schools, lead them to private school, they stay there. After 5, you come and take them. And meanwhile, you stay in the market, in your business. If abasha passes, you eat and clean your hands on the cloth. If shawarma passes, you eat. These are very, very unhealthy foods for us, you know, and it's not good for children, especially the children age until they are 18 years, the brain is still developing. And if you don't give the normal nutrition to the brain, you are not empowering them to be intelligent. And you see what is happening these days. Look at the ages of 25 to 30. Look at what is happening. 1, they are stubborn. 2, they are not intelligent. 4, they are not focused. 3, they are not, everything is in their age because of what? The kind of foundation we gave them. So MAHA is trying to bring back what our grandparents placed in us for the interest of continuity of our society. We also look at social protection for women in crisis zones. Women in conflict displacement and climate-affected regions must be prioritized in food assistance and recovery programs. That is very, very essential. We need to strengthen women's leadership in food governance. From village council to national ministries, women must sit at, I don't want to believe that women should sit at the table anymore. Women must be the table so that solution can come forth. We are tired of sitting. Because we are sitting too long time. Solutions are still not there. So women should arise to be the table of decision making. And that is only when solution can come. Because when you put me there, even if I have something to say, I'll be pressing my phone. Put me at the table. After all, there will be free lunch, there will be free drink, probably there will be transportation or accommodation. But the thing in me will not come unless I am the table. I'll bring out the idea, I'll bring out the solution, because we have the mandate, we have the authority to provide that. So Mothers Against Africa new moment will begin today as the inaugural of MAHA Mothers Moment. Is more than an event, but rather a continental awakening, calling on African mothers to celebrate the resilience of African motherhood, amplify our voices, equip them with tools, mobilize communities, influence policies, build a new Africa where no mother buries a child because of hunger. Those days, children die, not because they are going to die, but because nutritional value were not provided for their nurturing and rearing practices. We don't have time. We rely on fast food. The era of fast food has to be brought to an end. And that is the major campaign of MAHA Mothers Moment. It has to be a campaign that can lead into hunger solutions for Africa in trying to remodel our agenda as mothers of Africa. Mothers of Africa were never used to foreign foods. It has been our local organic food that develops intelligently, that builds and nourishes the system accordingly. A new Africa is possible for a mother to lead Africa, a new Africa. Imagine Africa where every woman has a land to farm. Imagine Africa where every girl has nutritious meals to learn and grow. Every community has women leading food governance. Every nation invests in gender-responsive agriculture. Hunger is not destiny, but a defeated enemy. When all these things happen, hunger will not be our destiny. Rather, it will end up being a defeated enemy. So this is the Africa MAHA envisions, the Africa we are building, one mother, one household, one community at a time. As we commemorate this International Women's Month today in inaugurating the MAHA Mothers Moment, let us remember one very significant thing. When you empower a woman, you feed a nation. When you empower a mother, you secure a generation. And when women rise, Africa rises. Let us prioritize gender. Let us prioritize mothers. Let us prioritize solutions to hunger in Africa. And let us bring back grandmothers' priorities and prioritize hunger solutions that build a new Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ada Menakaya. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. We're going to call on our next speaker, Lady Mary Lee Korek. She is the President, CEO, Frontrunner Development International, North Carolina, United States, and she'll be talking on the topic, exploring the systematic barriers that limit women's access to arable land, agricultural inputs, credit, and technology. Lady Mary, please.
Repetition is the mother of learning. So you're going to hear some familiar phrases, and I'm going to kind of ping off of our wonderful keynote speaker, Dr. Ada, and I hope that that it kind of lands in the right places, because I do believe that the more we hear the right words, the more that we can, all come together and understand that we're all of the right mindset. We're all together here. So first, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends, today I invite you to consider a paradox. Africa holds roughly 65% of the world's remaining uncultivated arable land. Across the continent, face food insecurity, and at the heart of this paradox is a deeper truth. The very people who produce the majority of Africa's food, its women, remain systematically excluded from the resources needed to thrive. We've been talking about that all morning. Women make up nearly half of the agricultural workforce in sub-Saharan Africa, and in some countries as much as 60% or more, as we've been hearing today. They are the backbone of rural economies. They plant, harvest, process, and sell. They feed families, communities, and nations. And yet, despite this central role, they are often locked out of land, finance, tools, and technology, as we know. So what do we do with this situation, right? It's not an accident, it's systemic. So let's begin with the land. Across Africa, women contribute significantly to farming. We know that, yet they own less than 15% of agricultural land, right? We all know that to be true. So, in many regions, land is governed not just by law, but tradition. Customary inheritance systems frequently favor men. Widows can be dispossessed. Daughters may be excluded entirely. And without land ownership, women lack more than property. They lack power. They cannot make long-term decisions about soil health. They cannot invest confidently in irrigation or climate resilience. And critically, they cannot use land as collateral. Land is not just an asset, it's the gateway to every other opportunity. And even when women farm land, often family plots, they face unequal access to fertilizers, improved seeds, mechanization, irrigation systems. These are the tools that drive productivity. Yet women farmers consistently receive fewer of them. And why would that be? Because agricultural extension services, training programs, and supply chains have historically been designed with male farmers in mind. Okay. Women are less likely to receive training in modern farming techniques, less likely to access climate smart technologies. We were just talking about that. Less likely to benefit from innovation. Again, we were just talking about that. The result, women farmers can produce 20 to 30% less than men on average, not because of their abilities, but because of unequal access to resources. And here's the opportunity. If women had equal access to inputs, global agricultural output could rise significantly, and hunger could decline significantly. Now let's talk about money, one of my favorite topics. Access to credit is one of the most powerful levers for growth in agriculture. And if you don't believe that, there's several people in this room that will chime in on that. It enables farmers to invest, expand, and adapt. But for African women, credit remains largely out of reach. And honestly, that's not just African women, that's across the board. In some regions, women receive as little as 10% of credit available to smallholder farmers, and just 1% of total agricultural credit. Across the continent, 4 out of 5 women lack access to formal financial services. Why does this happen? Because financial systems rely on collateral. Often that is land, right? And as we've seen, women are far less likely to own it. This creates a vicious cycle. No land, no collateral, no credit, no investment, lower productivity. It's not just inequality, it is structural exclusion, but into the system itself. Beyond formal barriers, there are invisible ones, deeply embedded in cultural society. Okay? In many communities, women are expected to prioritize household responsibilities over commercial farming. They may need permission to access markets, join cooperatives, or travel. Their work is often seen as subsistence, not economic. And so even when women produce food, they are excluded from decision-making, from income control, and from market participation. As one study noted, women's contributions are not only undervalued, they are actively undermined by overlapping systems of gender, class, and social norms. Well, this is not just a woman's issue, right? This is an economic issue, a food security issue, a climate issue. When women farmers are constrained, entire systems underperform. Closing the gender gap in agriculture could increase output, improve child nutrition, we all know that, and strengthen resilience across communities. Simply put, when women thrive, agriculture thrives, and when agriculture thrives, nations thrive. So pathways to solution on what we can do. The good news is we know what to do. We know what works. Governments must reform both statutory and customary land systems to ensure that women can own, inherit, and control land. Land titling programs that include women individually or jointly have shown transformative effects. There's a couple people on this call that have governance and policy in their background. I hope they're listening. These land titling programs is definitely what we need to concentrate on. Because when a woman owns land, she invests in it, right? And when she invests, productivity rises. So the second thing is that we can expand access to finance. That's kind of a tough one, but we need to think about this. So this means designing loan products that do not solely rely on land as collateral, but expanding mobile banking and digital finance, supporting women-led savings and lending groups, innovative models such as using movable assets or group guarantees can unlock capital where traditional systems have failed. So there's something to be thinking about there. Third, we can invest in inputs and technology. Women must be at the center of agricultural innovation. We can target distribution of seeds, fertilizers and tools, access to mechanization and climate smart technologies, training programs designed for women's schedules and realities. Technology is not neutral. It must be inclusive by design. As Dr. Ada says, we don't need to just be at the table. We need to be the table, right? Policy alone is not enough. We must engage communities, men and women alike, to challenge norms and get them into participation. Supporting women's cooperatives and leadership, promoting shared decision-making at household and community levels, and elevating women's voices in agricultural policy and governance, all being the table, right? Because lasting change happens not just in laws, it happens in mindsets. So here's the call to action. Let me close this by saying, across Africa, millions of women wait before dawn, they walk miles for water, they till land that they do not own, and they grow food that they may not control, and yet they persist. Imagine what would happen if we would remove the barriers before them. If we unlock land rights, expanded access to finance, delivered technology and training, and recognize their leadership. We would not just empower them, we would transform agriculture, we would strengthen economies and take a decisive step toward food security for all. The land is there, the talent is there. Now the question is, will we remove the barriers and finally unlock the full potential of the women who feed the continent? Just want to say thank you to all of you who are working so hard to do just this. So thank you to MAHA. I appreciate all of you. Bless you.
Thank you very much, Lady Mary. Thank you for that talk. We're going to call on Dr. Mrs. Blessing Irabo Oza She is the President Organization of Women in International Trade, and she'll be speaking on articulating policy solutions to close the barriers that limit women access to land and agricultural resources. Dr. Mrs. Blessing, please.
Thank you so much, Sister Leila. It's good to be on this call with great women like yourself. Thank you so much for moderating this session. My name is Dr. Blessing Erabo Oza, President, Organization of Women in International Trade, and I will be speaking on articulating policy solution to close barrier limiting women access to land and agricultural resources. Distinguished Chair, Your Excellency, Honorable Ministers, Ambassadors, representative of the United Nations and international organizations, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is a profound honor to contribute to this historic gathering of Mothers Against Hunger convened today in celebration of the Women's International Day. For me, this is not just a platform. It is timely. It is essential because it is bringing together those who shape policy and those who have experienced its impacts, creating a unique opportunity that will bring about real change. Across Africa, women are central to food system. According to the global data, women, we are contributing between 60 to 80% of food production in many parts of the continent. Yet, the sad story is that we own less than 20% of agricultural land and have limited access to finance, inputs, and markets. I've been working with women for a long time, so I have seen this and I've experienced it as a woman. What this is telling us is simple, but it is profound. Those who produce majority of our food do not control the resources needed to sustain and scale production. That is why we are having hunger, the malnutrition, every other thing that has been said today. We are therefore not dealing with a productivity problem. We are dealing with an access and equity problem rooted in system and structure. And what is the core problem? The barriers we are addressing today are interconnected. Land and structural barriers. Let me take that. In many countries, we all know that law exists on paper to protect women and their rights. But in practice, our customary system often overrides those laws. I would say in so many parts of even my country, Nigeria, and part of Africa, many women still cannot own or inherit land independently. So how are you expecting such a woman to scale when she cannot even own a land? And without land, you cannot access finance because you need a collateral. And most of the time you need land or landed properties. So it brings us that women, we are excluded financially because women lack land titles and lack collaterals. Without this, they are excluded from credits, insurance, investments, and this has continuously created a circle where lack of access leads to low productivity, and low productivity will reinforce exclusion. Institutional gap. Our agricultural systems are often designed without considering women's reality. For example, extension service may be available in different countries, but they are not accessible to women due to timing, location, or social constraint, which has been an issue also. We have the socio-cultural constraint. Underlining all of this are social norms. They limit women's decision-making power, our access, and economic independence. If we have to have strategic farming, the issue must be understood beyond gender. And I was happy when Her Excellency, mentioned that part of it. It is fundamental about food security, economic growth, and sustainable development. When women are excluded, productivity will decline, food system will weaken, economies will lose value. But when women are included, evidence has shown us such improvements: agricultural output, household nutrition, community resilience. So empowering women farmers is not an act of goodwill. It is strategic investment in African future. What will be our policy solution? We have to have an enabled land rights reform. We must have to move from law that exists on paper to system that will work in practice for women. What this means is to ensure that women can not only access land, but they can own it, they can control it, and use it as an economic asset. When countries have implemented John's land titling and simplifying registration, we see increased security, investment, and productivity. Gender-responsive agricultural financing is one of the key ways for us to make sure that this will work. Access to land must be matched with access to finance. Financial system must be redesigned to reflect women reality, including flexible collateral system, guarantee scheme, and digital financial inclusion. This is very important because when women have access to finance, they invest directly in food production, family welfare, and local economy. Another is to strengthen women in agricultural value chain. I've been a president of Organization of Women in International Trade. So I work with a lot with women who are exporting. But if we do not strengthen the value chain in agriculture, there's going to be a problem. So for me, I feel women must be supported to move beyond subsistence farming into value creation and market participation, not where they are taken to just go for expos, where you shade your things. That is not trading. For us to be players, we must have to be able to move containers. We must be able to have a structural B2B where we could talk to partners who want to invest or buy what or take off what we have. This will include processing, packaging, and trade, where higher income and economic empowerment are realized. This is where agriculture becomes, it's no longer survival, but a pathway to prosperity. Another one is looking at inclusive extension and technology access. Knowledge is the key driver of productivity. When women have access to training, climate smart practice, and digital tools, they are better equipped to adapt, scale, and compete. This will ensure that interventions are not temporary, but they are sustainable and future-oriented. Institutional accountability and data system. We must ensure that commitments will translate into measurable outputs. This requires tracking process through data. Who owns land? Who receives financing? Who benefits from policies? Without that, we cannot close gap. We can only describe them. Another for me under that policy framework is policy alignment with continental framework. AFCFTA is here. Women will have to, we are key players in AFCFTA. So we must learn to align continental framework that we ensure efforts are not fragmented. It will allow countries to leverage shared markets, shared learning, shared accountability, creating a unified approach to gender and food system transformation in Africa. What is MAHA opportunity? As an ambassador of the GPS, MAHA is more than an initiative. It is a movement for us as mothers in Africa. It will bring the visibility to the lived reality of mothers who have experienced hunger, not as statistics, but as daily challenge. It's going to provide a platform to ensure that our voices inform policies, that our experience will shape solution, our resilience will drive action. This is where policy becomes human-centered. My call to action: let this not be another dialogue that will end in well-articulated commitment without implementation. Let it be the moment where we translate intention into action. For me, government must move from policy creation to enforcement. Development partners must scale investments that are proven to work. The private sector must recognize women as key economic actors. Civil society must continue to drive accountability and inclusion because transformation requires collective responsibility. In my closing today, I would like to say, Africa cannot feed itself without its women, because women are already feeding Africa, but they cannot do more without access, ownership, and opportunity. For my closing, I will tell you that the continent is calling. The moment is now. Thank you for this opportunity to be part of this great initiative and movement that will change the narrative of African true mothers against hunger. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Blessing Irabolza. Thank you for the detailed presentation. We will be calling on Martha Chonyang. She is co-founder and CEO of NC Group Holdings Zambia. She will be talking on discussing women's leadership in food policy and governance in Africa. Martha, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, those that are only waking up this time. Thank you so much, Dr. Osita, for the opportunity for me to participate in this session. I have to start by saying most of what I've noted down has been covered, especially in the introduction and by my former speakers. So my presentation will be quite brief. And then I decided, as I was listening to everybody speaking and presenting, to say, maybe what I should do is rather speak about my experiences right now, do it like a storytelling theme. I'm currently working with a lot of smallholder farmers. I'm part of a foundation for the farmers that we work with. So as it has been stated earlier on, to say that women are the central of African food systems. And this comes in by default, naturally being caregivers, homemakers, and parents. So we sort of, it's a natural thing for us women to take care of the home in terms of where food security and management is concerned. So today I'm discussing women's leadership in food policy and governance in Africa. Leadership gaps. So when we look at leadership gaps, historically it's been rather looked down upon for women raising their hands to take up leadership roles or heading discussions in meetings. So this is the outcome, that women's voices have not really been heard enough and given a chance, because men have been prioritized as leaders in discussion, and men being considered the heads of the house and managers of household income. They have always been prioritized where it comes to decision-making of what happens in terms of managing accessing and managing funds related to food security. Also, by default, being the owners of the land. Women, it's only recent times that are able to buy land and be in charge of management of family business. So in terms of mechanisms that we're currently using, I'm just saying what we use is what we have applied with our female farmers. So the mechanisms that we have applied to amplify women's voices is collaborations with government. So we collaborate with government departments in charge of small business and agriculture, and we also, there is some funding organizations that are around across Africa. I'm speaking about Zambia and South Africa, but generally in Africa, there is funding that is particularly targeted at women empowerment, which we are now taking advantage of to give women that opportunity to speak freely and bring in ideas of how to access and manage these funds. Then also political appointments, as much as a lot of women are not keen to be in political positions, what government also could do and what we are advocating for is that they appoint a lot of women in positions, influential positions that can address these women issues. Someone earlier on also mentioned access to training, which is another point that is a constraint for women, especially in the rural areas, because they are not able to travel to where they can get the required training and implement some of these processes that are required. Then we also encourage women to join cooperatives. So sometimes just having women alone in a cooperative becomes a disadvantage because there's some heavy lifting that is required. So what we motivate is that they join the main cooperative where it's inclusive, and then get the skills required and tap into such organized structures to be able to also manage their projects on the land. Then we have also spoken about land ownership, which is really critical and is happening slowly, but we are moving towards getting that sorted. That will motivate a lot of women going into farming, because a lot of times, like we were speaking earlier on, that when they become widowed, usually the family will take over the land, and then that would be the end of the project and the business. Then when it comes to roles of African first ladies in working with MAHA, again, currently I'm speaking about Zambia and South Africa. The First Lady of Zambia is very active in women affairs, but we are working with the Vice President. The Vice President of Zambia is female, and she's really very aggressive and supportive of women in agriculture issues. We are currently working with her on the Chile Outgrower Scheme. So we have got our voices through her. And then also what that gives us is a platform for them to organize national and international conferences and knowledge sharing dialogues. So SADC region especially is very good at that, getting women together so that we share knowledge of experiences. I think I will end there and give my next colleague to speak. Thank you once again.
You're muted. You're muted.
Madam Barreto, you're muted. You're still muted. You're still muted.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for that. We're calling on Dr. Omanwa Ifoma Mobike. She is full-time faculty, Department of Mass Communication, University of Nigeria. She'll be talking on mechanisms required to amplify women's voices in continental and national framework. Dr. Mobike.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. I'm not taking it for granted. Thank you so much, His Excellency, Dr. Osita. I'm so grateful. My name is Omanwa Mobike, and I'll be speaking on women's leadership in food policy and governance, mechanisms required to amplify women's voices in continental and national framework. I'd like to give a very brief introduction about Nigeria. 2 years back, World Bank estimated Nigeria's population to about 232 million. That was 2 years back. So 2024 now, we have increased already. In fact, we are called the 6th or the fastest growing country in the world. And because of that, it is expected that the government of Nigeria should make food security its priority. That is on the one hand. On the other hand, to identify female farmers who engage in farm production and then work closely with them to see that they maximize them. Luckily, according to Statista, women constitute 50% of population. And that means we have the human resource. It also means that we have the capacity to turn this country around. But another thing that worries me is the National Agricultural Samples Census in 2022 that says that about 65% of Nigerians depend on agriculture to survive. I mean, that means if there's a negative shift in agricultural production, we know what it's going to lead to. It may lead to death or acute hunger. But that is why MAHA is here to bring solutions to turn around things. According to National Agricultural Sample Census, we have 50 million farmers, female farmers, 50 million farmers in Nigeria. And within that 40 million farmers, 88% are smallholder farmers. That is people who cultivate to feed themselves and then have a little, which they will take to the market for sale. And also, that little production, according to NASC, says that 90%, those people produce 90% of national output. Now, that means that even though the women use the traditional method of cultivating, the exact labor, they don't use mechanized farming, they can still contribute 90%, to the national output. So you can imagine what will happen if they engage in mechanized farming. Fortunately, 70% to 80% of these smallholder farmers are women. So the problem is, female farmers have a lot of challenges. We have mentioned some of them here. Some of them acquiring land, seed, equipment, fund, energy for storage, and the rest of them. But to compound the problem, we lack the avenue, the platform to speak up, to make our voices heard. We lack the avenue to actually negotiate with people that matter, with the government. We lack the platform to rub minds and discuss with some stakeholders that are even willing to help us, but they cannot because we have not been able to express ourselves. I've listened to a lot of people here, and from little investigations I have, women produce 60 to 80% of what we eat. But how come we are giving little attention? Now, we begin to think that we are being marginalized. I don't think so. We may believe that, but I don't believe that. We may think that, okay, let's fight for our rights. We shouldn't term it human rights, even though it's not wrong. We may begin to think of equality, gender equality. That means they begin to see us as people that want to fight for authority, for rights. So, but when we bring in MAHA, which is Mothers Against Hunger in Africa, when we bring in MAHA and table all these facts we have discussed here so far, it is enough for any sensible person, to understand that women have a lot to offer to every nation, but are being overlooked. that are being overlooked because we have not been able to engage in negotiations. We have not been able to engage in meaningful conversation. We have not been able to engage them to see our own point of view, to see from our own perspective, and for them to know truly they are shooting themselves in the leg if they are not incorporating us into national development. Therefore, the aim of this presentation is to suggest mechanisms that will amplify women's voices across Africa. And I would special focus on community radio stations. Now, community radio stations are different from commercial government-owned radio stations. Now, commercial radio stations, they transfer information. It's like information dumping. They just send information across to you. If you like, take it. If you don't like, leave it. If they want once in a year during Mother's Day or Women's Day, they can do a little phoning program or say one or two things about women once in a year, and it ends there. That is not enough. So we need our own community radio station if we want to amplify our voices. It's going to be voices, but by the time we come together, the voices will turn to one voice. That's under MAHA. Okay. Let's quickly look at our broadcast stations in Nigeria. We have 740 functional broadcast stations in Nigeria, according to NBC. Then over 500 of them are active radio stations. Within the 500 active radio stations, 89 of them are community radio stations. Within that, 4 of them are radio stations dedicated to women. See the way you just drop it. And then the gap there is that there's no dedicated community radio station for female farmers. And that is where MAHA comes in. My framework, just my suggestion, subject to change. I suggest that we use this framework of establishing what is called MAHA Farmers Community Radio Stations across Africa. My reason is this. The name MAHA, Mothers Against Hunger in Africa, says a lot. It talks about our vision, talks about our mission, talks about who we are. It expresses us as people who can do everything good, even to our own disadvantage, to see that we feed ourselves, we feed our husbands, we feed our children, we feed the nation, we even feed the world. Even though we are not being recognized, we are still hitting at it. You know, when we mention that MAHA, Mothers Against Hunger in Africa, you know, projecting that name alone, we can make it can open doors for us on the table of negotiation with the government or with some stakeholders, even with international bodies. Because here we're not clamoring for attention, we're not clamoring for equality of rights, authority. We're not screaming that we are being downtrodden, that we are being marginalized. We are saying that we are strong. We have all it takes to heal Africa of hunger. Then the next thing I suggest is to establish, now the first one is a physical community radio station. And now this community radio station are stations that belong to the community where it's situated. The community owns it. You know, remember, we have over 250 ethnic groups in Nigeria. Now, talk about other African countries. You know, but when we have community radio stations sited in a particular community, or maybe serving some communities that are related or they're grouped together, they will not have language barrier. It's going to bring down literacy barrier because everybody will be comfortable to talk about her problems, to talk about what affects her, talk about her farm produce, to talk about the challenges they have, talk about the opportunities available. So there will not be silence or spiral to silence. Rather, they'll be very vocal because this is our own. Like His Excellency said, this is our own. That's the way community radio stations are. So I suggested that we should establish virtual MAHA Farmers Community radio stations across Africa. Now, when we do that, already we are forming a network across Africa. It's not just one community radio, it's not one MAHA. There are several MAHA farmers community radio stations across Africa. We will be united, we will have one voice. Then in virtual MAHA farmers community radio, a country can produce, physically produce a program, and another country that has virtual community radio can actually earn. So they can collaborate with themselves. And when we are stronger, we are better. There is no place we enter we cannot win. Because we have the support of not ourselves within the nation, we have the support of all the countries in Africa. So we'll speak with one voice. Then also suggested that national broadcasting commissions should subsidize licenses for female farmers community. Of course, by the time MAHA is established, others will follow. So they should subsidize licenses for them, both for virtual or for physical, on-site or off-site community radio stations. I also include that we should partner with one or more telecommunication companies. That is going to make things cheaper for us. And I'm sure they'll be thrilled to partner with us. Now we can have, if we have a website and somebody wants to download information or whatever from the website, it's going to be free, because the cost will be on the telecommunication. Just make it free for us. Then we'll enjoy toll-free lines where if you're having a phone-in programs and people call, it's going to be free as well. Then we have expanded network. Now, telecommunications, these firms have a rich databases, rather have information about almost everybody, not only in Nigeria, outside Nigeria. So if we want to speak or send information to specific people with the telecom companies, we can easily achieve that. Then we can also access female farmers, and send SMS to them if you want to give them information or want to receive information from them. There's so many benefits, so many things we stand to benefit if we partner with them. Another one is to collaborate with the media. The media institution that we're talking about, the radio, the TV, newspapers, magazines, posters, and the rest of them. The essence is, as we are all making our own ripple effect within our communities and expanding it, crossing boundaries, they themselves will also amplify it. That is giving and lending or amplifying the voices of female farmers. Then there are other things that didn't include there that we'll be able to negotiate with our vision and with the facts we have on ground. We can easily negotiate with the government, even if it's the president. You can easily know who wants his administration to fail, who wants to serve his people. When we table our facts, when we table and negotiate very well with them, there is no way we'll not come out successful. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. so much. I am calling on the next speaker. The next speaker is Mr. Tobias Naruki. He is founder, CEO, African International Policy Research Center, Kenya. He's speaking on roles of African First Ladies in the work of MAHA mothers. Mr. Tobias.
Okay, thank you so much, moderator, for the brief introduction. I would like to stand on the existing protocols because of time. And I would like to start with a very brief story. In a small village in the northern part of Kenya, one of the semi-arid parts of the country, a mother wakes up every day during sunrise. She walks miles in search of water, tends to small pieces of land, works tirelessly to feed her children. Yet, despite producing food, her family sleeps hungry every day, more often than not. She has no land title, no access to credit, no insurance against drought, and no seat at the table where decisions about food systems are made. Her story is not unique. It is the reality of millions of women across the continent of Africa. Today, over 280 million people in sub-Saharan Africa face food insecurity, and yet women produce, as my previous colleague stated, 70 to 80% of the continent's food. This contradiction is not only an accident, it is a structural way of operation in our continent. It is the result of this that policies are needed to recognize and empower or invest in very backbone of our continent. And this is why today's conversation organized by MAHA is very important, not just as so, but also very urgent. As we work on and commemorate this month of the women, we must also move beyond celebration to action. And because gender equality is not a social issue alone, it is an economic and agricultural and food insecurity impeta, as we have been talking about. Through these engagements, one truth has become very clear, having listened to most of the speakers. First ladies have long been silent architects of social transformation in Africa. Having worked with them closely for decades, they have championed maternal health, nutrition, education, women's empowerment, and community resilience. And this is not enough. They have also mobilized resources, influenced national priorities, and brought global attention to local challenges, often without formal political mandates. I would like to refer to the recent engagement they had with the First Lady of the United States of America. But here is the gap that I would like us to fill in this discussion. While the First Ladies have been very powerful advocates of all these issues, their impact can be exponentially greater when anchored in clear, institutionalized policy frameworks. Goodwill alone is not enough. Advocacy as well is not enough. What Africa really needs now is a structured policy action designed, driven, and sustained through platforms like MAHA. And remember, when First Ladies are supported to champion gender-responsive agricultural policies, push for women's land ownership rights, as my colleague has stated, advocate for inclusive financing for women farmers, and institutionalized nutrition and food security programs, they will move from influence to transformational impact. We have already seen glimpses of this potential, and through continental platforms such as the African Union and the recent initiative under the First Ladies called the Organization of the African First Ladies, currently chaired by the President, who is the First Lady of Sierra Leone, can increasingly shape conversations at the intersection of climate change, poverty, and food security. Because the data is very clear that if women had the same access to productive resources as men, agricultural yields
Hey, Madam Moderator, are you there? Madam Moderator, are you there? Please unmute your microphone and take us to the next speaker. I think Tobias has a network problem.
It dropped off. I think he's going to come back in.
Say that again. Mary.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think he's dropped off. I think he's going to try coming back in.
Yes, but we don't know how long that will take him because we're running for time, Mary. But when he comes back, we will let him continue after the prevailing speaker. Madam Moderator, please, next speaker.
Okay, I think we lost Mr. Tobias there, network problems. While we wait for him to reconnect, we'll call on Mr. George Boake Sapong. He is founder, African Golden Food Limited, Tema, Ghana, and he will be talking on MAHA moms as mainstream in the war against hunger. Mr. George, please.
Madam Moderator, just send a message that he's hosting the Minister of Agriculture in his house. So if by the time the minister leaves and we're still here, he will join us. Did you hear me? Okay, please, next speaker. Thank you.
The next speaker will be Mr. Victor B. George, JD, founder, Etisra, advisor, North Carolina, United States. He will be talking on following the money, how financial crime enforcement protects women from trafficking, exploitation, and corruption. Mr. Victor.
Victor, unmute your microphone,
Thank you.
please.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that here. I am going to share my screen here. And I sorry now yeah. Everyone can see me here. I appreciate the introduction. My name is Victor George, and then it's a pleasure to be here. As I speak here on Follow the Money, where we're speaking of the economic prosperity of for Nigeria, because this is my theme as well, is that we understand that hurt people, heal people seek to heal people, and wealth minded wants to build wealth for people together. And so what Following the Money does is to understand why these things happen with anti-corruption, with money laundering, and how it impacts women, how it impacts our society, and how it destabilizes our ability to truly build. And so this is a big background on me. I'm a regulatory risk advisor. I've worked with global financial institutions, from building internal audit, from anti-money laundering, fraud prevention, and regulatory compliance. So these large institutions, they've come to me to help build their governance when they have these fines, they have these regulatory requirements from the regulatory agencies in the United States. Because as I am too, sorry to mention too as well, I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. And a fun fact too is that my history traces directly back. My 8th grade grandfather, Peter George, Victor George, came from Angola directly in 1650 to the United States, and my family has been traced directly there for 400 years, and one of the first people to work alongside of women. So this is something that is very personal and connected and tied to me. And so when we think about money laundering, like, what do we see this as? It's this. You think of criminal money, dirty money, and it's being washed. You're trying to make it look clean. When you have human trafficking, unfortunately, that impacts mostly women, people place that dirty money into a system, cash deposits, they'll try to layer it, and they'll open up a business and ensure that it's a clean business when it's not. And so we think about like anti-corruption and the corruption and bribery, what that looks like. That is money basically under the table. When you're thinking about someone who is procuring a contract with the Nigerian government for a business from the United States, they're coming to procure oil, and they're paying a government official under the table to procure and obtain that contract under the table instead of paying for it in an honest way in a business and paying the taxes, importantly, the tax part that would go to the Nigerian economy. So both of these instances, again, we look at the sides here. Anti-money laundering, anti-corruption, washing dirty money is money laundering. So you have this dirty money through trafficking, drugs, criminal enterprises that impacts directly that are occurring with women. And you're trying to make this look like a legitimate business or opening a bank account. And then the other side, you have the business, again, of bribery and corruption that goes under the table. And I want to go back to corruption because I've shared this with folks where it may not appear, they might understand it, but with a bribery, this is most important. When a company goes into Nigeria and they're paying, let's just say, $1 billion contract in oil, and that money would, in US dollars, that's 1 trillion nairas. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but it's 1 trillion nairas. That 1 trillion would be anywhere from 300 billion nairas that would be received in tax funding, infrastructure, schools, program. And what that does, it creates this poisonous mindset that occurs a lot of times with the men that I have to do me. I have to get me. I have to only have, it's all about me. I have to be able to get this and not think about the greater cause of community. And what the companies do when they're bribing a foreign, when they're from outside of Nigeria or anywhere, they're bribing that official who may not be making the money that they're able to make. They're able to pay lower taxes and they're able to create this poisonous system that trickles into the Nigeria economy, because as we've seen in our economies and other countries too, the best and most profitable and some of the more profitable and healthier societies have a healthy society of women too. So it's in all of our benefit to have that. And again, when we think, and now how do we fight anti-money laundering and corruption? And there's some parts here because when you have a transaction monitoring, such as for money laundering, these bank systems in Nigeria, they're required. So when someone is, unfortunately, they're in the business of human trafficking and they're issuing out and they're doing business, they have opened a bank account and they're transmitting money, these escalations should be reported. The banks are required to monitor their transactions and monitoring their clients that are in their systems and their clients' businesses. And from a corruption standpoint, we call it the Foreign Corrupt Practice Act. There's a big part here. So someone like me for corruption, if I were to go into Nigeria and get a business and pay money under the table, I can get in trouble. I go to jail. Even if it doesn't matter whether the incident occurred in Nigeria. Someone reports me and the DOJ, which is the Department of Justice of the United States, hears or there's actual evidence, I get fined. I get in trouble. So that reach now that these systems in the United States, UK have is another way to fight corruption so that businesses and economies such as in Nigeria can thrive and depend on. And as well as these governments, these agencies, they have requirements even for Nigeria to have a anti-corruption, anti-bribery program. So money and good business and legitimate economies and economics is funneled back into the people. And again, I want to repeat this point and really go back into why money laundering enables the trafficking of women, because it's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, unfortunately. And it disproportionately targets women to forced labor, sexual exploitation, domestic servitude. And these financial recruiters, they pay the networks, the recruiters, victims, and they hide the money. They hide where these channels go to. And unfortunately, again, it targets women, and particularly as well in those in Nigeria. And this is also a global issue. And so another way they're able to do that is through cryptocurrency. Because again, there's a certain secrecy, there's privacy. It's harder to track with cryptocurrencies and those kind of currencies that we have available. The other thing, like I said before, is the money transmitters, cash moving across borders, and other business like cash businesses. We all understand that as well. And then shell companies that have people that have fake businesses. So somebody might have a human trafficker where they'll open a fake farming business that does nothing, but they're only creating this fake business to show that they have a legitimate business so they can wash and hide their dirty money. And again, corruption, and from an anti-corruption, it strips the protections from women, again, because when a contract is only dealt upon or business is only procured through unmerited needs, it creates this hierarchy of I got to get me in this oppressionist system. So it trickles down where folks are not, they're going to pay somebody, they feel they can pay somebody under the table to get a contract, or they can pay a prosecutor to drop a case if they are in trafficking or if they are doing corrupt practices. And so again, I go back to here. I'm going to move on this here because again, we understand weak enforcements, again, where lighter enforcements, let's just say in the past, it could have been in Nigeria that we're not enforcing criminal activity, human trafficking and bribery. It instilled that need to want to continue to do that because people do what they think they can get away with, unfortunately. But where we've seen now, because of the stronger enforcements, now, like I said, in the United States, Foreign Corrupt Practice Act, and it's also in the UK, that if a national such as myself, a citizen, goes into a country, they are going to get in trouble. They can be in prison, they can be fined. Even in a fine, I want to say too, you don't have to have corrupt practices. If you don't have a governance, policies, procedures, and a vetting, you're still in trouble. You get fined. I get fined. So it really instills that. And so Nigeria, that was under, and they were placed on the gray list for having this as the financial action task force. They were on the gray list for they were flagged for their AML and crime enforcement deficiency. They were unplaced off that. 2 years later, they have been placed off in 2025. They're off of it now. And so this helps because it shows the government of Nigeria is moving in a space to create governance requirements that really creates a fair system. And so I want to say this is that you all have the power again. How do we fight against bribery and corruption? If you hear, if you understand, if you see that there's an American or a UK too, this also goes as well. And you can report that to the US officials. There are fines, there are sanctions. Also, there are payouts to whistleblowers. Whistleblowers, so that someone in Nigeria does not have to be a Nigerian national, can report a US citizen or a UK outside of that and get a reward back on that payment, on a reward back for whistleblowing and protections too. And when I say good government, it creates opportunity. Because now for Nigerian opportunity is through merit and not through oppression. We want to see people do well. We want to thrive in a system that's equal, that is merit, that's fair contracts and licensing, that the tax revenue, again, $125 billion are coming and invested in businesses are outside of the United States, outside of Nigeria. That is incredible tax incentives that should trickle down into the people in the community. And then what we get to is we get a system that wants to see women in businesses. Women can create the business in Nigeria. Women can open a business, can have employment because it's through a system of merit. Incredibly intelligent women I've been a part of. So I know we need that. It's incredible for Nigeria to have that. Because now Nigeria will have this system of, we want this because it's a self-preservation. Let's just say for a man that can be, I'm using this in this way, an example, toxic, angry, hurt. But when he understands that his best opportunity is for fair governance for him, it creates more of that incentive to create that good governance and the equality of women. Because I need, if I want to get and do well, I need you. And so overall, again, here's some of my contact information. If you want to talk, reach out. Here's WhatsApp. But again, good governance, it helps. Lightheartedly, I always share this with some of my college people I've met as well. I said, look, my wife is the greatest business decision I ever could have had because she keeps me in check. She is healthy. She allows and she helps me and supports me in a way that helps my mindset to say, okay, today, too, hey, you got to be ready, be prepared. And for my family. So I want to see her grow financially, economic, education for our child, for our son. If we have a daughter, it creates that mindset. And for men, need to see and recognize that too. So it's not just an oppression society. It's so we must all do better because it's important for me too. So thank you. Again, thank you all for having. If you have any questions, again, reach out. I'm here.
Thank you very much, Victor. We are calling on our next speaker, Princess Folosho Oyenuga, co-founder and president, National Omelette Bearers Nigeria. She's speaking on mapping current financing gaps in gender and food security programming. Princess Oyenuga.
Please, can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
So I just go on. So esteemed colleagues, development partners, and champions of gender justice, my topic is financing gender responsive food security programs in Africa. And the subtopic is mapping current financing gaps in gender and food security programming. Africa's hunger crisis is not merely a question of food availability. It is fundamentally a question of equity, access, and systemic exclusion. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, over 280 million people in sub-Saharan Africa face chronic food insecurity. Yet within this crisis lies a profound structural paradox, where women produce the majority of Africa's food, yet they remain the most food insecure demographic. This contradiction is not accidental. It is the direct result of persistent financing inequities embedded within our food systems. Today, I will focus on a critical but under-addressed dimension of this challenge, which is the financing gaps that undermine gender-responsive food security programming in Africa. Why do we have gender-responsive financing matters? Gender-responsive financing is not a soft development issue. It is a high-impact economic and food system strategy. Evidence shows that closing gender gaps in agriculture could increase yields by 20 to 30%, potentially reducing global hunger by up to 150 million people. Furthermore, women reinvest up to 90% of their income into family nutrition, health, and education. Despite these significant returns, financing structures remain largely gender blind or exclusionary. This disconnect continues to undermine progress toward the United Nations SDGs, particularly SDG 2, Zero Hunger, and SDG 5, Gender Equality, as well as the AU Agenda 2063. So how do we map the financing gaps? One, structural underfunding of gender-based, gender-focused agricultural programs. Structural underfunding of gender-focused agricultural programs. Globally, less than 10% of official development assistance, ODA, for agriculture integrates gender equality as a principal objective. Even with this limited allocation, funding is often fragmented, short-term, and project-based, with minimal investment in scalable, systemic transformation. As a result, gender-responsive food security remains pilot-driven rather than system-driven. Two, limited access to credit for women farmers. Across Africa, women receive less than 10% of available agricultural credit, and only about 15% of landowners are women and these factors significantly limit their access to collateral. In addition, financial institutions often perceive women farmers as high risk and low return. However, in reality, women are highly efficient producers, but are excluded due to institutional bias and structural barriers. We have gender-blind budgeting in national policies. Most African countries lack robust gender-responsive budgeting frameworks. So the absence of gender disaggregated tracking in agricultural spending leads to 1, invisible funding gaps, 2, weak accountability, 3, misaligned policy priorities. Weak investments in the care economy and time poverty. Women's productivity is heavily constrained by unpaid care work, including water and fuel collection, yet financing rarely supports rural infrastructure or labor-saving technologies, trapping women in low productivity cycles. Underinvestment in women-led agribusinesses. Women entrepreneurs receive less than 2% of global venture capital and remain weakly integrated into value chains. This limits their access to innovation, market expansion, and overall food system resilience. And we also have climate financing exclusion. Climate funds, including those linked to the Green Climate Fund, rarely prioritize women smallholder farmers. Gender-specific targeting mechanisms are often absent, despite the fact that women are disproportionately affected by climate shocks and are central to climate adaptation in agriculture. So what are the strategic imperatives for closing this financing gap? To build a gender-responsive food security architecture, we must transition from rhetoric to resource allocation. 1, we institutionalize gender-responsive budgeting. Governments must establish dedicated budget lines for women in agriculture and track outcomes through measurable indicators. 2, we expand access to gender-smart finance. Like we develop innovative financial instruments, which includes collateral-free loans, blended finance models, and mobile banking solutions for rural women. 3, we invest in women-centered value chains, like prioritizing agro-processing, storage infrastructure, and market access platforms. 4, we scale climate finance for women, like we ensure dedicated funding quotas for women farmers, gender-sensitive climate adaptation financing. 5, we strengthen public-private partnerships. Private sector actors must integrate gender considerations into ESG frameworks and invest in inclusive agricultural ecosystems. 6, we fund grassroots women's organizations. Organizations such as MAHA represent high-impact, community-rooted solutions and trusted delivery mechanisms, yet remain significantly underfunded. So we want to raise up a new financing paradigm, which is from margins to mainstreams. We must redefine financial frameworks through 3 critical lenses. 1, equity lens, correct historical imbalances. 2, efficiency lens, recognize that investing in women yields higher returns. And 3rd, sustainability lens, where we position women at the center of intergenerational food security. So now we have a call to action for financing the Africa we want. So distinguished participants, the question before us is not whether resources exist, it is where they are directed and whom they prioritize. 1, to governments, we want them to move from policy commitments to budgetary commitments. 2, to development partners, we want to shift from token inclusion to transformational investment. 3, to the private sector, we recognize women not merely as beneficiaries, but as economic drivers. 4, and to all of us gathered here, let us ensure that no woman who feeds a nation goes hungry. So lastly, I'm glad to announce that the African Development Bank, with headquarters based in Ivory Coast, and with the president, Mr. Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, is a Nigerian, and they have an initiative, AFAWA, that has decided to put $42 billion into women initiative to help women to intervene in the gap, to fill the gap. The details will be put forward to us within the next week. This can be accessed by women through the banks, not directly to them, banks like First City Monument Bank in Nigeria, and maybe other banks. This information will be made available. So we like to close, and we must close the gap, the financing gap. We want to move on. And in conclusion, the vision of Mothers Against Hunger in Africa, MAHA, is both urgent and achievable. A hunger-free Africa will not be built on charity, fragmented aid, or gender-neutral policies. It will be built on intentional financing, inclusive systems, and women's economic empowerment. And because when we finance women, we do not merely fight hunger, we secure the future of Africa. When mothers arise intentionally, we see a change exponentially. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Did you hear me?
Thank you very much. Yes, I did.
Did you hear me?
Yes, we all heard you, Princess.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I heard
Okay.
you, Ma.
Thank you very much, Princess Oyenuga. I'm calling on Dr. Ebere Grace Onuku Kebu Ekoma, Global Champion of Food Security, Switzerland, and she'll be speaking on mobilizing commitments from governments, multilateral agencies, and the private sector. Dr. Ebere.
Thank you very much. Good day, distinguished ambassadors, excellencies, guests, partners, advocates, and fellow mothers. I'm privileged to speak on mobilizing commitment for gender-responsive food security in Africa. Today, we come together to look at one of Africa's most urgent challenges, hunger. More importantly, we must recognize, empower, and invest in mothers as a decisive force in driving sustainable solutions to this crisis. Africa is rich in resources, yet millions still go to bed hungry. This is not due to scarcity, but gaps in coordinated commitment, investment, and political will. If we prioritize gender in our solution, we unlock Africa's full potential. No single actor can solve this alone, and that is why mobilizing governments, multilateral institutions, and the private sector is essential. Realities on ground, just like previous speakers rightly mentioned, Women produce up to 70% of Africa's food. They own less than 20% of the land. They have limited access to finance, to inputs, and markets. They also face barriers in education. And despite powering food production, women are still systematically underfunded and left without the support and opportunities needed to thrive in agriculture. This imbalance is not only unjust, but also inefficient. Closing this gap could significantly reduce hunger across the continent, especially in Africa. Why gender-responsive financing matters? One, it boosts productivity and yields. It strengthens household nutrition. Just like Professor Ambassador Ada JUNI said, the grandmom will always run to the backyard, bring fresh food, and make for them once they come in. So it strengthens household nutrition. It builds resilience. It accelerates economic growth. When mothers are empowered, entire communities benefit. Gender-responsive financing is smart economic and sustainable development. Pathways to mobilizing commitment for gender-responsive food security in Africa. Number one, let's look at the role of government. Government need to increase national budgets allocation to food security and agriculture. They need to support smallholder farmers, especially mothers. Invest in rural infrastructure, because when there is no road, you can't access the farms. When there is no storage system, the produce can perish. Irrigation as well. And they also need to ensure transparency and accountability. The role of multilateral agencies, they are here to provide flexible funding, because without money, all this long grammar will still remain on paper. Number two, align with grassroots realities, support community-driven solutions, strengthen data system. Then number three, the role of private sectors. Private sector should help invest in agricultural value chains, support food processing and storage technologies, create public-private partnership, and empower women through inclusive models. Here we can now appreciate the power of partnership. Just like I rightly pointed out at the beginning, no one sector can do this alone. While the government is creating an enabling environment, multilateral agencies will provide the support, private sectors will scale the innovation, while civil society organizations such as MAHA initiative play a vital role in ensuring that no one is left behind. For example, MAHA successfully conducted a pilot sensitization test with mothers in northern Nigeria, specifically in Nasarawa and Abuja in 2025. With enlightenment and minimal funding, participants utilized available space within their premises to engage in farming activities, which yielded unimaginable results. This highlights the importance of awareness and adequate funding in advancing such initiatives. It is also worthy to note that mothers have a remarkable capacity to multiply and maximize whatever is entrusted to them. Therefore, we must place mothers and communities at the heart of solution, as they understand the challenges most deeply and are best positioned to drive meaningful change when empowered. Call to action. We call on governments to commit to reforms by creating policies that ensure equal access to land, finance, and opportunities for mothers across the continent. We call on multilateral agencies to scale funding to expand impactful programs that address hunger and empower vulnerable communities. Private sectors to invest with purpose by supporting inclusive agricultural value chains and women-led enterprises. Lastly, civil society to drive implementation and accountability by ensuring initiatives reach the grassroots and deliver measurable results. And this is exactly what MAHA is here to kickstart. In closing, together we can build an Africa where no child sleeps hungry, no mother is left powerless, and no community is forgotten. Let this meeting not be remembered for what was said, but for what was started, because together we feed the future. Let us move from conversation to commitment. Let's remember, hunger is not lack of food, it is lack of action. And today we choose action. With Mothers Against Hunger in Africa leading the charge, we are set to drive this change and create a future where no one is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ebere. Thank you very, very much. At this point, I am going to reinvite our Curator General, Ambassador Dr. Osita Aniemeka, to handle the next phase of this inaugural meeting. Dr. Aniemeka, please.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you very much. I am happy and I am sad. Happy that this happened, but sad that our visionary, the lady who has for whom today, is a very beautiful day, had to run off to a radio program in New York. The radio program started just at this minute, so she left 30 minutes ago, and she has asked me, she has a couple of documents. She has asked me to read the proclamation and then share with all of us present, the appointment, the GPS appointment for MAHA, which is a very formal document. So for the proclamation, I'm going to be fast about it. It's the last bit. It's going to take about 1 or 2 minutes, but as soon as we're done, we will all come on camera to take our photograph that will be our memorabilia, and then we will close. I want to thank you all for having spent time today for this very brilliant inaugural. And then we promise that beginning from tomorrow, you'll be receiving content that will determine our next steps, which I know we're all prepared for. So this is proclamation. It begins with better together, feeding the future for zero hunger sustainability. Mothers Against Hunger in Africa, MAHA. Statement of proclamation. Better together, feeding the future for zero hunger sustainability. We, the mothers of Africa, guardians of life, keepers of the household flame, and bearers of generational hope, rise today in unity and purpose as Mothers Against Hunger in Africa, MAHA. We stand on the conviction that hunger is not destiny. Hunger is injustice. Hunger is preventable. Hunger is a violation of the dignity God has given to every mother and child. Today we proclaim with one voice. We proclaim the power of togetherness. We declare that no mother, no community, no nation can end hunger alone. But together we can build systems of nourishment, resilience, and justice. Better together is not a slogan, it's our strategy, our strength, and our shared future. We proclaim women as leaders of food security. We affirm that women are the backbone of Africa's food systems, yet too often excluded from land, credit, technology, and decision-making. We proclaim that zero hunger is impossible without women's leadership in agriculture, nutrition, climate resilience, and community governance. We proclaim a future where every child eats and thrives. We envision Africa where no mother buries a child because of hunger. Every girl grows strong and nourished. Every household has access to safe and nutritious food. Every community is equipped for climate-smart resilience. Every nation invests in gender-responsive food systems. This is the future we are feeding, and this is the future of dignity, hope, and sustainability. We proclaim our commitment to action. As MAHA mothers, we commit to 1, advocate for gender-responsive agricultural policies, strengthening women access to land credit and technology, promote maternal and child nutrition, reduce the unpaid care burden on women, mobilize communities for sustainable hunger solutions, elevate women's voices in national and continental food governance. We will not be silent. We will not be sidelined. We will not be ignored. We proclaim divine partnership for a new Africa. We acknowledge God who sees, the God who provides, and the God who lifts the humble. We also acknowledge the God who strengthens the weary. We with faith and courage, we proclaim that Africa shall rise, mothers shall lead, hunger shall fail, justice shall prevail. Therefore, by the authority of our collective voice, by the strength of our motherhood, by the urgency of this moment, we proclaim better together will feed the future. Better together will build zero hunger. Better together will sustain Africa's tomorrow. So let it be proclaimed. So let it be lived. So let it be done. Ambassador Professor Ada JUNI Menakaya, Global Coordinator, Gender Priority Strategy of the United Nations. Okay, we took our time to listen to that. You're going to receive your copies. But before then, please, can we all, thank you for the clap. Thank you. Thanks for the applause. Can we all, if it's possible, come on camera? We need us to come on camera so that we take our first shot as the family is initiated. This is the rule of engagement. Everybody here today should please come on camera so that we can take our photograph. You just give me 1 minute to do that. Please, everybody here present today will have to come on camera. This is the last function for today, and let it not be wasted. Everybody here present. Everybody here present. So it has begun. We'll take as much as possible, as many shots as possible, so that we can distribute this to every attendee and make sure that we're all happy to be who we are, Mothers Against Hunger in Africa. And I want to thank you all for having spent your time for this. I want to thank all the presenters. I want to thank all the attendees, people that I am proud to be associated with for a very long time in my life, people that I know are strong mothers, people that I know that will fight hunger with resilience and full strength. Thank you all, and God bless you. But before we go, I will do what we normally do at small MAHA meetings. I would like anybody who has one word to describe experience today to please show by raise of hand and give us one word. It is being recorded. We will share this. If you have one word that you know describes to this experience as we all come together as one family, please raise your hand and give us the word. It's recorded because we're going to make our excellent statement using those words. So for me, my word is resplendent. People who know me understand that's my signature word. Resplendent, that's my word. There was Yes, please. Yes, please. You raise your hand. Let's unmute your microphone, please, so that we can hear you.
For me, one word that describes today is that women are no longer waiting. We are taking the initiative.
One word, Madam Dr. Blessing. One word.
African is moving.
One word. You're giving us sentences. One word. One
Initiative.
word. Initiative. Fantastic. Madam Moderator, Lala King, Ambassador. One word.
Informative.
Informative. Lady Mary Kurek, one word.
Blessing. It's a blessing.
It's a blessing. Blessing, Dr. Blessing, you are one wonderful words. Yes, sir. My friend with the cap, I can't see your name. My friend with the heart. Yes, you raised your hand earlier. One word, please.
Moving forward.
Moving forward. One word. Forward. I'll take forward from you. Next person. Carol Miller, one word.
Predictive.
One word, what?
Predictive.
Predictive. Fantastic. Oma, the professor from Nsuka, one word.
Inspiring.
What?
Inspiring.
Inspiring.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. I have Joy Uso, one word.
Innovative.
Innovative. Dr. Ebere, one word.
Remarkable.
Remarkable. Barrister Francesca, one word. Unmute your microphone, one word, please. Yes, Francesca, unmute your microphone, one word. Unmute your microphone. Unmute your microphone and speak. Ambassador Pamela Odipele, one word. One word. Unmute your microphone and give us one word. Next will be Cecilia Bio, Ambassador. Yes, Odipele, one word.
Change.
Change. Fantastic. Ambassador Bio from Sierra Leone.
Progressive.
What? Progressing. Progressing. One word, progressing. Beautiful. Francesca, please unmute your microphone so that we can hear you. Unmute your microphone. As you unmute, my friend Victor George.
Yes.
One word.
Autonomy.
Autonomy.
Yes.
Autonomy, brilliant, brilliant. This is quite fantastic. Ma Lati, Carmen Lati, UK, one word. Unmute your microphone and give us one word, please. Professor Kathy Matthews, one word, please. Unmute your microphone, one word. Yes, Carmen Lati, you're on now. Unmute your microphone and give us one word, please. Unmute and speak before we close finally.
Exhilarating.
Exhilarating, fantastic. That's Jamaican English. The woman from Jamaica in London. Folake Ashinze, one word. One word.
Progress.
Progress. Progress. Fantastic. One word, Rose Mbaga, my friend from Tanzania. One word, Rose.
Yeah, Ubuntu.
Ubuntu. I thought as much. I was waiting for that. Ubuntu. Fantastic. Olu Esther, one word. Olu Esther, one word. Phyllis, one word. Unmute your microphone, please. One word.
Together.
Together. Fantastic. Amara, one word. Okay, Oluesta, we can't hear from Amara. Huh?
Oluesta.
One word, please.
Progressive.
Progressive. Progressive. Yes. That's the second time we're hearing that. Yes. Okay. Blessing. Blessing. My friend George is here from Ghana. Unfortunately, we just closed, George. Well, we'll need to hear one word from you, George. Sorry, I know you are very busy. I told them already that you are hosting your minister in your house. Is there anybody else who hasn't given us one word? Yes, Blessing, one word, please.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Princess
yes,
Oyenuga.
One word. The African consultant. One word.
Okay, is Ambassador Nita. And
Nita.
my word is enlightening.
Enlightening. Wonderful, Ambassador Nita.
Yes, sir.
Bless you. Yes, my friend George.
Yes. So my word is action. Action.
Action. Brilliant. Yes, please. Brilliant. Okay, ladies
Princess
and gentlemen.
Oyenuga.
Yeah. Who is this? Yes, Francisca, the barrister. One word.
Exquisite.
Explicit. Explicit. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, just one more.
One more, please.
Yes, please, please. Alakweju Sholagbade. Please, one word.
Yes.
And where is Princess Oyenuga? Is she here?
Yeah, I'm raising my hand.
Okay, give us one word so that we can hear from Olakweju too. Olakweju Bola Sholagbade. Yes, Madam Folusho, give us one word.
Astonishing.
Astonishing. Fantastic. One word. One word.
Olakweju, yes. Mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing. One compound word that is fantastic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been an amazing experience, but it's not just this. This is the door opening. Every time you hear MAHA, beginning from tonight, it is action. George just said action out of Ghana. Everybody here has said something that makes it the future. We have started our journey. It is high-flying, elegant African ladies with men assisting in gender issues in communities. So it's heal and magic. We've come together and the future is ours. God bless you all. And please, let's continue with our conversation. The enlarged MAHA, what's it called? What do we call it, Mary? Was the MAHA runners platform, the platform for all MAHA members. Everybody whose name is on our register have attended will be added to the community and work starts immediately. God bless us all and thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.